from the instructional television studios of the Archdiocese of New York, Fordham University Campus Ministries presents a National College Satellite TV retreat. Today's program, A Rediscovery of Life, is conducted by Father Anthony de Mello of the Society of Jesus. And now to introduce Father de Mello is Fordham University's Associate Director of Campus Ministries, Father J. Francis Stroud of the Society of Jesus. Father Stroud.
Our program today is being produced by the Campus Ministries of Fordham University with the cooperation of the Catholic Campus Ministry Association and originating from the instructional television studios of the New York Archdiocese. For my introduction of Father Tony de Mello, I have just one personal note I want to communicate with you. The most important year in my life was 3 years ago when I spent 6 months with Tony in India. It is a joy for me to share him with you for this one day. Please welcome a colleague, fellow Jesuit, friend, Tony de Mello of the Society of Jesus. Take it away. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, let me begin by telling you what I plan to do with you today. First of all, I'm delighted to be talking to a young group. The first time I'm doing this in the United States. I mean, I can see all of you are very young, even the somewhat older looking ones, but you know, I plan to keep this as relaxed and as homely as possible. Someone has told you, I think this is going to be a retreat. Well, yes, a retreat of sorts. You know, this isn't a church where I think this is going to be more in the nature of a kind of a dialogue. I discovered something 10, 12 years ago, and it turned my life upside down, revolutionized my life. I became a new man. So this is what I'm going to share with you. Happy to share it with you. In a special kind of way, though, because you might say to me, how come you heard this just 10 or 12 years ago? Hadn't you read the Gospels? Of course I'd read the Gospels, but I hadn't seen it. It was right there, but I hadn't seen it. Later, having discovered it, see, I found it in all the major religious writings. And I'm amazed. I mean, I was reading it and I hadn't recognized it, hadn't seen it. I wish to God I'd found this when I was younger, like most of you. Oh, what a difference it would have made. So, how long would it take to give it to you? A whole day? Well, I'll be honest with you. A couple of minutes. I don't think it would take more than 2 minutes. Giving it to you wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes, I don't think. Grasping it or getting it might take you 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, 10 minutes, 1 day, 3 days. Who knows? Who knows? That depends on you. If you would bring one quality to this little session we're having here together today, just one. You need one quality to see what I sort of saw 10 years ago and what revolutionized my life. Various people have told me since then that their lives were pretty much revolutionized too. But not too many people, I'm sorry to say, very few. I tend to think that if about, let's say 1,000 people are listening to me and one hears it, that's a pretty good average. Pretty good average. Is it difficult to hear? Is it difficult to understand? It's so simple, a 7-year-old child could understand it. Isn't that amazing? And in fact, when I think of it today, I think, why didn't I see it? I don't know. I don't know why I didn't see it, but I didn't. Now, maybe one or other of you might see it today, or might see part of it. What would you need to see it? Just one thing, the ability to listen. That's all. Are you able to listen? If you can, you might get it. Now, listening is not as easy as you might think it is. Reason. We're always listening from kind of fixed concepts, fixed positions, prejudices. See, listening does not mean swallowing. That's gullibility. Oh, he says it, so I take it. I don't want any of you to have any spirit of faith while you're listening to me. I mean, you could take what the church teaches on faith, you could take the Bible on faith, etc. Don't take me on faith. What I want you to do is question everything I'm saying, think about it, come back at me, feel free to do that. See, even while I'm talking, ask questions, raise your hands anytime. I'd be happy to do this kind of dialogue with you. So, it does not mean gullibility, but then listening doesn't mean attacking, see? Because I'm going to say something so new, some of you are going to think I'm crazy, I'm out of my mind. So, then you're going to be tempted to attack. If you tell a Marxist there's something wrong with Marxism, the first thing he's likely to do is attack you. You tell a capitalist there's something wrong with capitalism, he's up in arms. You tell an American, hey, you know, there's something wrong with the United States. And the same with the Indian, if you're attacking India, etc. Doesn't mean swallowing, doesn't mean attacking, doesn't mean agreeing. They tell me about a Jesuit superior who was a great success, see. So somebody said to him, how come you're such a great success as a superior? He says, very simple. The formula is simple. I agree with everyone. I just agree with everyone. They said, don't be absurd. How could you be a successful superior agreeing with everybody? He says, that's right. How could I be a successful superior agreeing with everybody? So it doesn't mean agreeing with me. You could disagree with me and get it. Isn't that amazing? It means being alert. You're alert, you're watching, you're listening with a kind of a fresh mind. That's not easy either. Listening with a fresh mind, without prejudices, without fixed formulas. See, like, just yesterday somebody told me the story of the guy who was told that, you know, the famous saying, you have an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, this guy was having an affair with the doctor's wife and was eating an apple a day. So, no, he got it all wrong. He got it all wrong. He was from a fixed formula, see, a fixed position. They tell me of a priest who was sort of trying to convince an alcoholic parishioner that he ought to give up drink. So he gets a glass of alcohol, pure alcohol, and he gets hold of a bug, a worm, and he drops it into the glass. And the poor worm begins to wriggle and dies. And he says to the parishioner, you got the message, John? John said, yeah, Father, I got the message. I got the message. You know, you got a bug in your stomach, alcohol's the thing to take. Oh, he got the message, yes. John wasn't listening, see? He wasn't listening. Well, I know a case where Father wasn't listening either, because they tell of the alcoholic who goes to the parish priest. The parish priest was reading the newspaper, didn't want to be disturbed. He said, excuse me, Father. Father was irritated. He ignored him. Excuse me, Father. Father says, what is it? He said, could you tell me what causes arthritis, Father? Father was irritated. What causes arthritis? He says, drinking causes arthritis, that's what causes arthritis. Going about with loose women causes arthritis, that's what causes arthritis. Gambling causes arthritis, that's what causes arthritis. Why did you ask? He says, because it says in the paper here that the Holy Father has arthritis. father wasn't listening, see? So, okay. All right. If you are ready to hear something new, simple, new, unexpected, against almost everything you've been told till now, you ready to hear that? Then maybe you'll hear what I have to say. Maybe you'll get it. You know, when Jesus taught the good news, I think he was attacked not only because what he taught was good, but because it was new. We hate anything new. I hated anything new. I don't want to hear anything new. Give me the old stuff. We don't like the new. It's too disturbing, too liberating. Okay, so the ability to listen. Buddha formulated it beautifully. He says, monks and scholars must accept my words not out of respect, must not accept my words out of respect, but must analyze them the way a goldsmith analyzes gold, by cutting, scraping, rubbing, melting. You must not accept my words out of respect, but analyze them by cutting, the way the goldsmith analyzes gold, see? Cutting, scraping, rubbing, melting. Okay, so we've got that clear. Next, the theme of today, we said the rediscovery of life. So let's begin the investigation. Let's begin the research. And then I'll get you even to talk to one another and share views, etc. Okay? So let's start. Life. What's this thing we call life? Take a look at the world, and then I'll invite you to take a look at your own life. Take a look at the world. Poverty everywhere. I read in the New York Times yesterday that the bishops of the United States claim that there are 33 million people in the United States who are living below the poverty line drawn by the government itself. If you think that is poverty, you ought to come to other countries and see the squalor, the dirt, the misery. You call that life? Well, I've got news for you. I'll show you life even there. About 12 years ago, a little more, I was introduced to a rickshaw puller in Calcutta. You know what a rickshaw is? The guy who, it's awful. I mean, a human being, you don't have a horse pulling you, but you've got a human being pulling you. The lifespan of these poor men is from 10 to 12 years once they begin pulling the rickshaw. They don't last very long. They get tuberculosis, see. Now Ramchandra was his name. Ramchandra had TB. At that time, there was a little group of people engaging in an illegal activity called exporting skeletons. The government eventually caught on to them. But you know what they did? They sort of bought your skeleton while you were alive. If you were very poor, you went to them and you sold your skeleton for the equivalent about $10. And so they'd say to you, many of these rickshaw pullers, they'd say, how long have you been working in this trade? And Ramchandra says, 10 years. And they think, he doesn't have much longer to live. All right, here's your money. Then the moment you die, they pounce on the body, they take it away. And then when the body is decomposed through some process they have, they get hold of the skeleton. Well, Ramchandra had sold his skeleton. That's how miserable he was. And so on and on. He had a wife, he had kids, and the squalor, the poverty, the misery, the uncertainty. You'd never think to find happiness there, right? One day I said to this guy, nothing seemed to faze him. He was all right. Nothing seemed to upset him. I said to him, aren't you upset? He said, about what? You know, your future, the future of the kids. He says, well, I'm doing the best I can, but the rest is in the hands of God. I said, hey, but what about your sickness? That causes suffering, doesn't it? He says, a bit. We got to take life as it comes. I never once saw him in a bad mood. Well, one day when I was talking to this guy, I suddenly realized I was in the presence of a mystic. I suddenly realized I was in the presence of life. It was right there. He was alive. I was dead. You know, a person, a man who reincarnated in himself, those lovely words of Jesus, look at the birds of the air. Look at the flowers of the field. They don't sow, they don't spin. They don't have a moment of anxiety for the future, not like you. It was right here. I know he must be dead by now. You know, I met him very briefly there in Calcutta and then went on to where I live now, further south in India. What happened to this guy, I don't know. But I know I'd met a mystic. Extraordinary person. He discovered life. Rediscovered, discovered. You know, it's interesting, I frequently reflected. The human mind is such an extraordinary thing. It has invented the computer. It has split the atom. It sends ships into space. It has not solved the problem of human suffering, of anguish, loneliness, emptiness, despair. You're pretty young, most of you. But I honestly don't think you're strangers to loneliness, heartache, emptiness, depression, despair. How come we haven't found the answer to that? We've made all kinds of technological advances. Has that raised the quality of our living by 1 inch? Want to know my opinion? No. Not 1 inch. Oh, we have more comfort, more speed, pleasures, entertainments, that's right, more erudition, greater technological advances. What I'm saying is, any improvement on that loneliness and emptiness and heartache, any improvement on that greed and hatred and conflict, less fighting, less cruelty? If you want my opinion, I think it's worse. And the tragedy is, as I discovered 10 or 12 years ago, the secret has been found. They discovered the atom. We don't have to go in search of solving it. We got the solution. Why don't we use it? We don't want it. That's why. Would you believe that? We don't want it. We don't want it. Can you imagine my saying to somebody, look, I'm going to give you a formula which would make you happy for the rest of your life. You'll enjoy every single minute of the rest of your life. Imagine my saying that to you. Okay, I'm going to say that to you today. I'm going to give you the formula. I'm going to give it to you. You know what most of you are going to do? Sorry for insulting you in advance, okay? But if you're anything, if you're anything like the audiences I've had till now, you know what most of you are going to do? You say, stop it! Don't tell me! Stop it! Don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. And you don't even have to take that on faith. I'm going to prove it to you. You're going to prove it to me before the end of today. Oh, we're going to have a lot of fun. You watch. You don't want it. 6 months ago, or roughly 6 months ago, last summer, I was in St. Louis, Missouri, giving a workshop, kind of a weekend workshop. There was a priest there who came to see me. He said, you know, I accept every single word you've said over these 3 days, every single word of it. And you know why? Not because I've done what you encouraged us to do, to cut and rub and scrape and analyze. He says, no. He said about 3 months ago, I assisted an AIDS victim on his deathbed. And the man told me the following. He said, "Father, 6 months ago, the doctor told me I had 6 months to live." How right he is, because how right he was. The man was dying, see. He said, "I had exactly 6 months to live." And I believed him. You know something, Father? These have been the 6 happiest months of my whole misspent life. Happiest. In fact, I've never been happy till these 6 months. I discovered happiness. He said, as soon as the doctor told me that, I dropped tension, pressure, anxiety, hope, and fell not into despair but into happiness at last. And the priest said, "You know, many is the time I've been reflecting on the words of that man." He said, "When I heard you this weekend, I thought, the guy's come alive again. You're saying exactly what he said." Here's another guy who had it, who found it. You're Christians, most of you. You know, I'm accustomed to talking to groups that are not Christians either. Then I generally take the Quran. Philippians. For whatever the situation I find myself, you've got it right here, the formula's here. Well, he doesn't tell you how to do it, that I shall supply. No, it's right here too. The formula's here too. How to do it is here too. But listen to what he says. For whatever the situation I find myself in, I have learned to be self-sufficient. What do you mean self-sufficient? You're not vulnerable. Yeah, there it goes. You'll be attacking me before the end of today. Yeah. For whatever the situation I find myself in, I have learned to be self-sufficient. I am experienced in being brought low, and I have known what it meant to have abundance. I have learned how to cope with every circumstance, how to eat well or to go hungry, to be well provided for or to do without. I have learned to cope with every circumstance, how to eat well or to go hungry, to be well provided for or to do without. A little earlier he says, rejoice always, rejoice in the Lord. Again I say it, rejoice. I think of Ramchandra in Calcutta. I think of that AIDS victim in St. Louis. That's what he's talking about. I had read it all my life and had never understood it. I mean, it was staring me in the face. Didn't grasp it. Okay, let's suppose you want to grasp it. Let's suppose you want to see it. What do you have to do? A, understand a couple of truths about yourself. And then I'll throw the formula at you, and you make what you want of it. So here goes. What do you have to understand about yourself? First, your life is in a mess. Don't like to hear that? Well, maybe it proves that it's true. Your life is in a mess. Maybe you'll say to me, maybe, if you're like the average person I run into, your life is in a mess. People will say to me, what do you mean my life is in a mess? I'm doing pretty well in my studies. I got good parents. I got good relations with my family. I've got a boyfriend. I've got a girlfriend. Everybody likes me. I'm doing well at sports. And I have a pretty brilliant career ahead of me. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Do you think your life is not in a mess? He says, no. All right, tell me. Here's the acid test. Ever feel lonely? Any heartache? Ever get upset by anything? You mean, aren't we supposed to get upset? You want the clean, clear, simple answer? Yeah, no. You mean not be upset by anything? That's right, you heard me. No. Shut up, I don't want to hear any more. See what I mean? No. He got a theory. He's got a theory. You got to be upset or you're not human. Okay, go ahead and be upset. Good luck. Bye. You know, there's a lovely saying by one of your American authors, which I frequently quote. He says, don't teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and irritates the pig. I had to learn the lesson the hard way. I've stopped trying to teach pigs to sing. You don't want to hear what I'm saying? Bye. No arguments. They don't argue. I'm ready to explain, ready to clarify. Why try to argue? Not worth it. So, ever suffer any interior conflict? You mean all your relationships are going well with everybody? Well, no. Your life is in a mess. You mean you're enjoying every single minute of your life? Well, not quite. Well, see what I told you? It's in a mess. Hey, wait a minute. The incarnation. Yeah. All right, bye. See you later. Alligator. Why argue? I'm not interested in arguing with you, period. I know because I was doing that all along. Not interested in arguing. You either face the fact that your life is in a mess or you don't. You don't want to face it? I've got nothing to say to you. And your life is in a mess means you're a victim of heartache, at least occasionally. You feel lonely. There's emptiness staring at you. You're scared. You scared? Yeah. Your life is in a mess. You mean we're not supposed to be scared? No, sir, or madam, as the case may be. No, not supposed to be scared. About anything? About anything. But Muhammad was... Excuse me, we'll deal with Muhammad later. All right, let's talk about you. Fearlessness. You don't know what it means. And the tragedy is you don't think it's available. It's so easy to get. Since they told you it's not available, you never tried to find it. But it's right here all over the Bible, and you won't see it. Because they told you it's not available. You anxious for the future? Any whiff of anxiety, worry, upset? Yeah, you're in a mess. How about that? Want to clean it up? I'll clean it up for you in 5 minutes, depending on how ready you are. You don't have to move out of that chair. You could be sitting in that chair and you could clean it up in 5 minutes. And I mean that. This isn't a sales gimmick. I mean it. It's so simple and it's so deadly serious that people miss it. And you could have it. You know, do you know how they discovered the diamond mines in South Africa? It's a very interesting story. I read it some time back. This author says, I think it was an American, a guy, a white man, who was there in South Africa, was sitting at the hut of the headman of one of these South African villages. And he sees the kids there playing with what looked like marbles. And his heart skipped a beat when he recognized that those weren't marbles at all, they were diamonds. He picked a couple of them up. Diamonds. So he says to the village headman, he says, could you give me some of these? You know, I've got children back home who play this sort of game too, and yours are a bit different. Could you know, I'd be ready to give you a pouch of tobacco for this. And the chief laughed. He said, look, this would be highway robbery. I mean, it would be real robbery to take your tobacco for these things. We've got thousands of them here. So he gave him a basket full. The guy comes back, goes back with a lot of money, buys up all of that land, and within 10 years, he's the richest man in the world. Now, you know, that could be a parable. It's tragic, it's painful to think. I mean, I think back on my own life and I think, why did I waste it? I wasted it. In all kinds of wonderful things, believe me. Part pastoral ministries, theological enterprises, liturgical services, etc., etc., etc. You know, the more occupied we are in the things of God, we priests, the more likely we are to forget what God is all about, and the more complacent we're likely to become. That's the story of Jesus. Who do you think got rid of Jesus? The priests. Who else? The religious people. That's the terror of the gospel, see? All right, so now, I think I wasted it. I don't have a minute's regret. Why waste even a minute regretting the past, okay? But the fact is I wasted it. Reminded of that powerful story of the fisherman who goes out early in the morning to fish. And it's too, whatever, I don't understand these things, but apparently it's too dark or something. And his foot hits upon something that seems like a sack. So he picks it up, probably washed ashore from some shipwreck or whatever. Then he opens it and he can feel pebbles inside. So he takes these pebbles and he entertains himself till it's dawn, see, by flinging those pebbles far out into the sea, and to see if he can judge from the plop how far he sent the pebble. Well, when it becomes a bit light and the dawn begins to, or the day begins to dawn, he looks into the sack and he finds 3 precious stones there. God, they were filled with precious stones and he hadn't known it. Too late. Too late. Too late. Too late. Not too late. 3 stones still. Not too late. Not too late. Let's suppose this guy, he's starving. These people who were sitting on top of those diamond mines, they're starving, their children are undernourished, etc. They're looking for food, they're begging, they're pleading with people to feed them. And someone says, hey, don't sell that property. You've got diamond mines. You see this thing? You see this thing? It's a diamond. You could sell it. You could get $100,000 for this. They say, him no diamond, him stone. He got it in his head that that's a stone. Refuses to listen. No, that's a stone. Now that's the condition of people everywhere. They won't hear you. They won't listen. You're telling them life is extraordinary. Life is delightful. You could enjoy it. You wouldn't have a minute of tension. Not one. No pressure. No anxiety. You want it? Not possible. Never been done. Cannot be done. No spirit of research, of investigation. Let's find out. Let's go. No. Can't be done. I don't want to hear you. I mean, our priests have told us it can't be done. Our psychologists tell us it cannot be done. You coming to tell us it can be done? Out. Too bad. All right. So the first thing, are you ready to admit that your life is in a mess? Second, this is a bit tougher, okay? You don't want to get out of it. You do not want to get out of the mess. You talk to any psychologist who's worth his name and he'll confirm that. The last thing a client wants is a cure. He doesn't want to get cured, he wants relief. Eric Byrne, one of your great psychiatrists here in the United States, puts it very graphically. I won't give his exact words because I'm a bit scared. You know, this is traveling, how much did he say? 44,000 miles? I better use respectable language. He says, imagine a client who's up to his nose in a cesspool, okay? Yeah, he calls it liquid shit. So he's up to his nose in a cesspool, all right. And he's coming to you, and you know what he's saying to you? He's saying, could you help me so people won't make waves? Doesn't want to get out. Oh, no, get out, for heaven's sake, no. Just help me so they won't make waves. That's what he wants. He doesn't want to get out. He doesn't. You want to test that on yourself? I'll give you a couple of minutes. You could do it right now. You want to test it on yourself? Okay, here goes. Suppose you could be blissfully happy, but you're not going to get that degree. Ready to barter your degree for happiness? You're not going to get that girlfriend of yours or that boyfriend. Ready to barter them for happiness? You know something? You're not going to be a success. You're going to fail. And everybody say, he's a bum. But you'll be happy. You'll be blissfully happy. Ready to barter the good opinion of people for that? Oh, no. I'll give you time to think about it later. Oh, no. No, sir. Or madam. I'm told about that Chinese student who was learning English. And he learned it from a book, of course, the poor kid. And this lady says, would you have a cup of tea? He says, yes, sir, or madam, as the case may be. So there it is. So no, sir, or... So anytime I say no, you could take the madam for granted, as the case may be, all right? So, no, sir, he's not ready. When I was in Syracuse last summer, I read a nice ad that says, you know, there's this girl holding on to a boy, the ad in the newspaper, and she says, I don't want to be happy. The only happy people I know are in a lunatic asylum. I want to be miserable with you. See what I mean? I don't want to be happy. I want to be miserable with you. She'll develop a theology about the damn thing after a while. They don't want to get out of it. They don't want it. They don't want it. They don't want it. I don't want happiness. I want fame. I don't want happiness. I want to get that gold medal at the Olympics. Suppose I tell you, look, give up the gold medal. You'll be happy, damn it. What do you want that gold medal for? What do you want to be the top, the boss of the corporation for? I'll make you happy. On $10,000 a year, I'll make you happy. No, 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 no. Give me my money. My money, my money, my money, my money. See what I mean now? Now you're catching on. They don't want to be happy. They don't want to live. They want money. You know that guy Ramchandra, the rickshaw puller? He lived like a king. He lived like a king. I mean it. I mean it. Foreign aid is fine. He didn't need foreign aid. Not to live. He needed foreign aid for comfort. He needed it for health. Not for life. He might have needed it for longevity, which means, you know, a long life. But you call that you call that life? Long existence. Not to live. He was living. I was dead. He knew what life was. He was happy. He was like the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. He was an incarnation of the Sermon on the Mount. It was all there in the Sermon on the Mount. I discovered later. It's all there. Hadn't seen it. He lived like a king. What does it mean to live like a king? You know what idiots think it means? And the world is peopled with them, believe me. Idiots. You know what they think it means? It means moving around in limousines, having everybody curtsy to them and salute them and all that sort of rubbish, all that sort of garbage, have their names in their headlines. They think that means having power over people. They think that's what it means to live like a king. I tell you what I think it means. They're not living like kings, they're slaves. They're terrified. Look at their faces on television, for heaven's sake. Those kings and queens and presidents and the rest of them. Look at them on television, you'd recognize it at once. He's scared. You know why he's scared? Because he wants power, that's why. He wants prestige, he wants a reputation, that's why. He's not living like a king. I'll tell you what it means to live like a king. To know no anxiety at all. No inner conflict at all. No tensions, no pressures, no upset, no heartache. So then what are you left with? Happiness, undiluted. People sometimes say, what do I do to be happy? You don't do anything to be happy, silly. It shows how bad your theological education has been that you think you've got to do something to be happy. You don't have to do anything to be happy. You can't acquire happiness. You know why? Because you have it. You got it right now. You got it. But you're the whole time blocking it in your stupidity. You're blocking it. Stop blocking it, you'll have it. If I could show you how to get rid of your conflicts, your anxieties, your tensions, your pressures, your emptiness, your loneliness, your despair, your depression, your heartache, you get rid of all of that, what are you left with? sheer undiluted happiness. That's what you have. The Chinese put it beautifully. When the eye is unobstructed, they say, the result is sight. Don't do anything to get sight. When the eye is unobstructed, the result is sight. When the ear is unobstructed, the result is hearing. When the mouth is unobstructed, the result is taste. I will add later, when the mind is unobstructed, the result is truth. And when the heart is unobstructed, the result is joy and love. You've got it all, but it's obstructed. Drop it. So second major step, you don't want to get out of it. You want comfort. You want your little possessions. You want the little things that society has taught you are essential for happiness. Falsely. You want that. You don't want to get out of the mess. Those are the things that are creating the mess. Look, I've been talking too much. I've been talking for 45 minutes. I ought to give you a bit of a break. Let me do this. Let me give you something to talk about for 2 or 3 minutes. You can even stand up while you're talking about it. See, I don't want you to be sitting there so long. Stand up and stretch and talk about it, and then maybe you want to ask me a few questions. Later I'll give you a somewhat longer break to draw up more formal questions. You get what I'm saying? More formal questions. And then we'll take in questions from outside too. But we'll do that a bit later, maybe 15 minutes hence. Why don't you stand up for a couple of minutes and think of this. I'm going to give you something to talk about and to think of. It's this. Has it ever occurred to you that what you call your happiness is really your chain? Has it ever occurred to you that what you call your happiness, just think, what do you call your happiness? You're calling somebody your happiness? You are my joy. Your marriage, your business, your degree, whatever. Where do you find your happiness? In whom do you find your happiness? Your prison. Oh, this is hard language, and who can listen to these words? But reflect on it, cut, scrape, melt. Then maybe I could get a little reaction from you. Then I go right on with the presentation, kind of, relentlessly on, and then we'll have a longer break. Take a couple of minutes, stand up, stretch, kind of thing, relax. Let's pick up the thread again. Your life is in a mess. You don't want to get out of it. There was another thing. It's in a mess because you've got wrong ideas. Not because there's anything wrong with you. You're okay. And I'm okay, you're okay. We're all okay. We're great. There's nothing wrong with us. They put wrong ideas into our head. Somebody did. We needn't spend too much time trying to catch the culprit. But anyway, the fact is you got wrong ideas. It's like somebody gives you a stereo set and you get a manual of instructions that comes along with it. Well, they didn't give us a manual of instructions when they gave us the gift of life. Or let's put it the other way. They gave us the manual of instructions. It was all wrong. So you're not getting music. You're getting scratchy sounds. You're getting upset, you're getting conflicts, you're getting loneliness, you're getting emptiness. Oh, it was right there in the Bible, but very few people read it really. They think they do, but they miss the point. I missed the point. Maybe I'm an unusually big idiot, but I discovered lots of company after a while. They missed the point too. They didn't get it. All right, so what is the point? Now, there are many ways of putting the formula. I'm going to give you the simplest I found. I'm going to give it to you in the words of old Buddha. Why did I choose him? Because his is the simplest of all, but you find it everywhere. It's the simplest of all, enunciated with limpid clarity. You're probably going to disagree with it, but you can't miss the point. Here it is. The world is full of sorrow, The root of sorrow is desire. The uprooting of sorrow is desirelessness. Oh, I'm looking at your faces. It's wonderful you're thinking. That's great. That's great. And you're thinking wrong. That's awful. Isn't it wonderful? Because I know how I used to react to this. The world is full of sorrow. Great. Right. Agreed. The root of sorrow is desire. Well, all right. Now, what are you going to conclude? The uprooting of sorrow is desirelessness. So I'm going to be a vegetable? I mean, how do we live without desires? Ah, you got it. See, I got it. Let's give you a better translation. I mean, I don't think Buddha would be so foolish and stupid as to say we ought to have no desires, for heaven's sake. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have the desire to come here, right? I wouldn't be speaking if I didn't have the desire to speak. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have the desire to come and hear me. So, let's give it a better translation. The world is full of sorrow. The root of sorrow is attachment. The uprooting of sorrow means the uprooting, the dropping of attachments. You know, there are desires on whose fulfillment my happiness does not depend. You got lots of desires on whose fulfillment your happiness does not depend. Or else you'd be climbing walls, you'd be nervous wrecks. All of us have two types of desires. We got desires, we desire all kinds of things, and gee, we're happy to get them. And we don't get them, okay, too bad. We're not unhappy. But we've got other desires. Good Lord, if we don't get that, we're going to be miserable. That's what he calls an attachment. Where do you think all conflicts come from? Attachments. Where do you think greed comes from? Attachments. Where do you think loneliness comes from? Attachments. Where do you think emptiness comes from? You got it, same cause. Where do you think fears come from? My, how clever you're becoming. Attachments. No attachment, no fear. Ever thought of that? No attachment, no fear. We're going to take your life. Go right ahead. No attachment to life. Happy to live. Happy to let go. You think that's possible? You know something? People have attained it. So it is possible. Want to attain it yourself? Attachment. Sorry, sir, you have AIDS. You only have 6 months to live. Just 6 months? Boy, that's a lot of time to live. That's wonderful. Happiness. Hey, this guy got no attachment. You walk into a restaurant. I think we'll have soup tonight. What kind of soup do you have? You have tomato soup? No, sorry, sir, no tomato soup. No tomato soup, for heaven's sake. I mean, what kind of a restaurant is this? Come on, folks, we're going somewhere else. See, if I don't get tomato soup, I can't have dinner. Attachment. What kind of soup do you have? Tomato soup? No tomato soup. Well, what do you have? Well, we got sweet corn, we got mushroom soup, we got chicken broth, we got... Pretty good, I like all of those. How about mushroom? Let me slip in another little secret. I'm going to cheat on old Buddha right now and slip another little one in while we're on this point. You know, when you enjoy the scent of 1,000 flowers, You're not going to feel too bad about the absence of one. Nobody ever told you that in your culture, did they? They didn't tell me. When you enjoy the taste of 1,000 dishes, you're not going to feel too bad about the absence of one. Do you recollect being educated to enjoy 1,000 dishes so that nothing upsets you? See, we missed that, we got this. What do you know? Oh, no, you got to get this. That's what your culture and mine is training us for. We got the wrong instructions. They don't give a damn whether you and I are happy or not. They want us to achieve. They want us to produce. That's what they want. Even if we're going to be miserable slaves and unhappy. So big deal. You lost a friend. You got 1 million friends. No, not that kind. I want one personal, unique, unsubstitutable friend. So if he rejects me, then I'm miserable for the rest of my life. Good luck. Bye. Not teaching this pig to sing. Too dangerous. But that's the way we've been brought up. That's the way it has been for thousands of years. You got to have desires on whose fulfillment your happiness depends. Very good for so-called progress, of course, because you'll throw all you have into the enterprise. So-called progress. I call it so-called, because that's not progress to me. That isn't progress. You mean, isn't it progress when we have jumbo jets and spaceships? Very clever. I'll tell you what is progress. Heart progress. Love progress. Happiness progress. You got that? Oh, sorry, we don't have that. You can keep the rest. What's the use of it? Tell me, what's the use of moving around in aeroplanes with a heart that is full of misery and emptiness? Tell me. I'd rather live on the ground in a jungle and be blissfully happy and dancing all day. Wouldn't you? Maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. You see, you're really confronted with a choice of life or death. And what people call life is frequently death. And they don't know it. And you mean to tell me that if you've got attachments, you can love? The biggest enemy to love, attachments. Desire in the sense of attachment. You know why? Because if I desire you, I want to possess you. I can't leave you free. I got to get you. I got to manipulate you so that I can get you. If I desire you in this way, I'm going to manipulate myself so that I can hoodwink you into getting you. You following what I'm saying? Clear enough? Oh, yeah, you're on. All right, wonderful. So, then I got fears. You call this love? You call this love? I mean, you're lacking intelligence. Love, for heaven's sake. I'm not leaving you free. I'm not leaving me free. I'm manipulating you. I'm manipulating myself. I'm trying every means to get you. And there's fear. And so it is said so beautifully. Perfect love casts out fear. No fear in perfect love. You know why? Because there's no desire. Now, ask your culture. I've asked mine. Ask your culture if it can make any sense out of this statement. Where there is love, there is no desire. Desire in the sense of attachment, okay? Okay? Attachment. You know what they tell you? But attachment is love. That's how stupid they are. Then you expect to find life. You can only find death and misery. You say, how could you love if you don't feel attachment? Later, I'll keep this for the end of the day, I'll talk explicitly about love. Such a simple, such a sublime, such an extraordinary thing. And I rarely run into anyone, believe me, I'm serious, I mean every word I'm saying. I run into all kinds of people. I run into people of all kinds of religions, and I run into Catholics and non-religious people, you know, people who are atheists or whatever, and I run into Catholics or lay people and priests and sisters and bishops, and I rarely run into someone who knows what love is. They got the wrong instructions. So when I tell them, hey, how could love be attachment? They're arguing about it. And then, of course, after 5 minutes, they say, you're right. You mean you've lived 55 years, you've written books on theology, and you haven't seen this? He says, no. Well, I'll give you some comfort. I lived about as much as you did, and I hadn't seen it either, if that's any comfort to you. But it's so obvious. Attachment meaning, without you, I will not be happy. Got to get you. Attachment means, I got to get you. If I don't get you, I won't be happy. I cannot be happy without you. There you've got the formula for divorce. There you've got the formula for quarrels. There you've got the formula for friendships falling apart. I cannot be happy without you. I need you for my happiness. By damn, I'll do everything to manipulate you to get you. Love means, I'm perfectly happy without you, darling. It's all right. And I wish you're good, and I leave you free. And when I get you, I'm delighted. And when I don't, I'm not miserable. What do you know? I have learned to be self-sufficient. I'm standing up on my own 2 feet, not leaning on you. And you know, if I get money, that's wonderful. And if I don't get money, I'm not depressed. I'm happy. And you know something else? When you go away, I don't... Maybe it's too soon to say that here, but anyway, I'll risk it. I don't miss you. I don't feel pain. Where there is sorrow, there is no love. Tell me, when you grieve, whom are you grieving for? Whose loss? Self-pity? Oh, don't call it that. You're telling the truth now. Here's the formula. If you were not actively engaged in making yourself miserable, you would be happy. We were born happy. All life is shot through with happiness. Oh, there's pain. Of course there's pain. Who told you you can't be happy without pain? Come and meet a friend of mine who's dying of cancer, and she's happy in pain. So, we were born happy. We lost it. We were born with the gift of life. We lost it. We got to rediscover it. Why did we lose it? Because we were working actively. They taught us to work actively to make ourselves miserable. How did they do that? By teaching us to become attached. By teaching us to have desires so intense that we would refuse to be happy unless they were fulfilled. The tragedy is, my dears, the tragedy is that all you need to do is to sit down for 2 minutes and just watch how untrue it is that you would be unhappy without A or B or X or Y or whatever. Do you know something? You won't sit, because if you sit, you might see it. You won't sit and look at it. I know I wouldn't. I resisted it for years. You mean if I don't get Mary Jane or I don't get John, I won't be happy? Hey, wait a minute. That's false. Before I met him, I was happy. You know something? I once fell in love with somebody, and then, well, I lost her. And I was heartbroken. And what happened? I'm all right now. So she wasn't my happiness after all. Remember the time you were a child, and you lost something, and you thought, I'll never be happy without this. What happened? If we gave it to you today, you wouldn't look at it. But why don't we learn? Oh, no. We got to live in illusions. It feels good. It gives you a kick, doesn't it? It gives me a kick. We want kicks. We don't want happiness. We want thrills. And wherever you got a thrill, you got an anxiety. Because you might lose it, or you may not get it. And you got a depression following. You got a hangover. It's so simple, as I told you. I could put it down for you in 2 minutes. Whether you'll hear it is another question. That depends on your own heart. So here it is. The world is full of sorrow. The root of sorrow is attachment desire. The uprooting of sorrow is the dropping of attachment. How does one drop it? One only looks and sees that it is based on a false belief. The belief that without this, I cannot be happy. That's false. The moment you see it's false, you're free. Good luck to you. May take you 1 minute, may take you 25 years. But the day you see it, you're free. You're free as a bird. You know, you'll be coming up to give satellite retreats, you'll be talking to presidents, you'll be meeting popes, you won't be one bit fazed. You're free. You're free. You're completely free. You'll be making an ass of yourself, you won't bother. You won't bother to impress any. You know what that means? That you're not bothered to impress anybody? You know what it means? That you don't give a... Is damn a swear word in the United States? Maybe I shouldn't be using it. You don't give a tinker's damn what they think about you and what they say about you. You know what that means? Oh boy, that's freedom. You're not bothered about whether they approve of you or they don't. It's all right. You're happy. You don't approve. All right, too bad. That one failed. We move on. I'm happy. But that's because you've discovered that your happiness does not lie in these things. You've got to see that for yourself. Useless reading a book, useless listening to me. You've got to see it. And of course, you won't see it if you got the wrong formula. I'll deal with the questions right now, okay?
Thank you. My name is Pat Sakachik, and I'm from the Graduate School of Religion at Fordham.
Yes, Pat.
Basically, my question revolves around this. There seems to exist a tension between being aware of a state of detachment, that's probably not the right way to put it, and also that pulling toward what society says you have to do to be successful. And how do you resolve that tension, or even that sense of one's pride that gets in the way when you
Great.
become
Okay,
aware of
Pat.
that?
Thank you. Thank you. Do you get the question? It's like a pull. On the one hand, happiness, peace, serenity, being self-possession, if you want, being above it. On the other hand, the drive that society has put into us to be successful. How does one resolve it? Just redefine success. Redefine it. What is success? Now, that's not going to come easy if you're too much in the grips of what will they think, what will they say. What Pat calls pride. I wouldn't call it pride. I'd call it a kind of a total dependence for one's worth on others. If you think I'm worthwhile, I'm worthwhile. If you judge me a success, I'm a success. If you don't, I'm not. Oh, who will give us the grace to break out of that? When I meet a man or a woman who has broken out of that, I salute. Not the other ones. The big commanders and the presidents. Oh. Very inferior human beings. Not one bit better than the average. Lustful, greedy, frightened, anxious, ambitious, grasping, controlled like puppets by what people think and what people say, and so captured, so enslaved by the desire for power and this. You want me to respect that? But then I run into a guy like Ramchandra. My, he has my admiration. I run into the kind of person, this AIDS victim in St. Louis. I didn't have the privilege of meeting that man, but that man has my admiration. See, we're admiring the wrong things, Pats. And this goes for most of our religious institutions. They say, you got to make it. And they're so honored that an ex-alumnus has become blah, blah. Is this what we value? See? So, or do we value the person who has broken out of the clutches of society? Do we value riches? Like you're giving $1 million, you get the front row. Christian institution, did you say, Father? So it goes. See, as somebody pointed out, we're so much in danger. We're brainwashed. We're bombarded constantly by this viewpoint. We're indoctrinated. Now I'll address myself to this question, so that way it's a nice introduction to what I'll be saying this afternoon. I'll be addressing myself to this question this afternoon after about an hour, to this stranglehold that society has on us. Is it possible to break out of that? Okay, here we go again. Ready for more work? All right. I thought of a couple of stories to tell you on my way here to illustrate a bit what I was trying to communicate this morning, see? Then while I was sitting here waiting for us to come on, I thought of a better one. There's a Japanese master, a fellow called Bokoju. See, every time I think of his name, I imagine a plump, rotund kind of a guy, happy-go-lucky soul. Bokoju. It was said of Bokoju that every morning when he woke up, he'd give a great big belly laugh that resounded through the 250 cells of the monastery. Everyone could hear him. Everybody woke up with that laughter, like the alarm clock, see? Great big belly laugh. And he'd go on for about 3 or 4 minutes. And the last thing he did at night before he went to bed was again let out a great big belly laugh, and then he'd curl up on his mat and go to sleep. And the disciples were very curious to know what it was that made the master laugh. And they tried their level best to get him to tell them. But he wouldn't. And he died without telling them. That's the end of the story. So all kinds of people have been trying to figure out what was it that made him laugh. I got a couple of hunches myself. You know, we have an Indian mystic called Kabir. Kabir has some extraordinary mystical poems, and one of them begins with the line, "I laughed when they told me that the fish in the water is thirsty." How about that one? I laughed when they told me that the fish in the water is thirsty. You mean you're in the water? Mm-hmm. You're a fish? Mm-hmm. You're thirsty? Oh, come on. But we are, aren't we? Or another line that I read last summer, somewhere here in the States, of an African hunter, an American hunter who would be hunting in Africa. He said he lived with some natives there, and whenever they were in danger, he said it was quite extraordinary. They'd look at us white men, says this man, with a strange kind of curiosity when they saw fear in our eyes. It was incomprehensible to them, to this particular group of natives, okay? It was incomprehensible to them, says this writer, like looking into the eyes of fishes who were afraid to get drowned. That's pretty good too. Can you imagine a fish scared of drowning? And so again and again, the mystical teachers of the world have been posing this question. They're puzzled. Why are they unhappy? That kind of thing. Why are they scared? That kind of thing. And of course, till one has seen, it makes sense to feel scared. It makes sense to be unhappy. You know, when I talk about fear, I'm not talking about the present response to immediate danger. I'm not talking about that. That the animals have. I'm talking about fear of what's going to come, fear of what's going to happen. I'm talking about that. And this, the mystics tell us, doesn't exist. In their mind, simply doesn't exist. Boy, what a state to be in. Extraordinary. Well, here we are with these. There's another nice story about this. There's this camel trader, an Arab, who's walking across the Sahara Desert, and they pitch tent for the night, and the slaves, drive pegs into the ground and tie the camels to the pegs. Then they come in to say to the master, there are only 19 pegs and we've got 20 camels. How do we tie the 20th camel? And the master said, these camels are stupid animals. Just go through the motions of tying the camel and he'll stay put all night, which is what they did. And the camels stood there, convinced of it. And next morning, when they lifted tent and they continued on their journey, the slaves came to complain that all the camels were following except this one. This one refused to budge. And the master said, you forgot to untie him. They said, oh yes. So they went through the motions of untying him. That is an image of the human condition. We're scared about things that are not. We're tied to things that don't exist. They're illusions. They're falsehoods. They're beliefs. They're not realities. The agonies we go through over things that we have convinced ourselves our happiness depends upon, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. And we don't want to see it. Again, the mystics, I guess they understand this because they went through this themselves. They're in amazement that the human being would deceive himself, or people would fool themselves in this way. Now, what I'm going to offer you today is the beginning. You don't need anyone else to show you the way. If you keep following this, as I said to you in the previous session, you just get a glimpse of this and you keep at it, you'll find the way, and sooner or later you'll discover what this means. You're tied to things that don't exist. They don't exist. The story of the disciple who goes to the master, and the master says, what have you come here for? And the man says, moksha. Moksha is the Sanskrit word for freedom. I've come for freedom. Oh, freedom, says the master. Go and find out who has bound you. So the guy goes back and meditates for a week and comes back and says, no one has bound me. And what do you want freedom for, says the master. And in that minute, the disciple's eyes are opened and he attains freedom. He attains liberation. What have you come here for? Freedom. Go and find out who has bound you. Well, no one has bound me. Then what do you want freedom for? You're free already. Why do you seek it? But you don't understand it because you've tied yourself with all kinds of imaginary chains. So this is going to be the theme of the present session. We're going to take it a little bit at a time, okay? We take little breaks and stuff so it won't be too heavy on you. Let's take it one step at a time. There's one of these Beatles, Lennon I think his name is, I read a marvelous sentence of his, marvelous sentence. He says, life is something that happens to us while we're engaged in something else. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Life is something that happens to us while we're busily engaged in something else. Worse, Life is something that happens to us while we're busy suffering all sorts of other things. You know, I have a perfect image for this. You've got a concert hall, there's a symphony that's going on, the orchestra's playing, you've settled down nice and nicely and comfortably in your seat, kind of the dark atmosphere, and you're getting ready to hear the music and to enjoy it, and then suddenly you remember that you forgot to lock your car. Oh gosh, what do you do now? You can't get out, it'll be too disturbing. You cannot enjoy the music, and you're caught in between. That is the image of life for most people. Constant anxiety. What do I do now? What's going to happen next? How do I cope with this? How do I deal with that? Oh, you seem to recognize that. Yeah. You mean, is another condition possible? It is. It is. It is. You know, what are you religious for? What is the use of your religion if it isn't giving you this? You got the dogmas right, you got the beliefs right, you got the ritual right, you got everything right, but your life is all wrong. What's the use of it? You got the menu, but you got no food to eat. What's the use of it? You got all the Lord, Lord right, but there's no life, huh? Why do you call me Lord, Lord and not do what I'm telling you? What's the use of it if you don't know how to use it? So here goes. How does one use it? Let's begin with, you're upset. Remember we talked about upset this morning? You're upset because of your attachments. So let's begin concretely. If you remember nothing else from today except what I'm going to say in the next 5 minutes, that'll be worthwhile. You're upset. What is it that upset you? Somebody died, somebody betrayed you, someone rejected you, you lost something, your plans have gone awry, something's gone astray, whatever. Can you think right now, even as I'm talking, of something that has upset you in the recent past? Go on, do it. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 seconds to do that. Think of something that has upset you in the recent past or is upsetting you right now. Then get your soul ready for a shock. Here it comes. I say it just like it is. I'm going to lob the bomb right into your midst. Listen to this. Nothing in reality, nothing in life, nothing in the world upsets you. Nothing has the power to upset you. Did anyone tell you that? All upset exists in you, not in reality. You could underline the word all. All of it, all of it, all of it. All upset is in you, not in life, not in reality, not in the world. It's in you. Just understanding this has changed the lives of people, 180 degrees round. Just understanding this and no more. Reality is not upsetting. Reality is not problematic. If there were no human mind, there would be no problems. All problems exist in the human mind. All problems are created by the mind. Somebody said to me in Denver last summer, wouldn't there be some problems that exist in reality and not in me? I said to him, if we take you out of there, where's the problem? No problem. Now, to me, this is a truth so simple, a 7-year-old child could understand it. But I've met people, you know, who are doctors in all sorts of things, but they never understood it. Never understood it. They just took for granted that problems exist in the world. Problems exist, or by problem I mean something that upsets you, okay? I'll repeat that. By problem, I mean something that upsets you. They think it exists in the world. They think it exists in other people. They think it is in life. No, no, no. It's in them. As simple as that. Nothing has the power to upset you. Now I'll work that out concretely. Somebody broke their promise, okay? You're upset. What do you think upset you? Broken promise? Because I could bring another individual here in your place, and she or he is faced with a broken problem, a broken promise, and is not upset. How come you got upset? Now you choose to think, you were trained to think, that it was the broken promise that upset you. It wasn't the broken promise. It was your programming. It was your training. You've been trained to upset yourself every time you're faced with a broken promise. You're planning a picnic on Sunday, and the picnic gets rained out. Where do you think the upset is? In the rain or in you? In the rain or in your reaction to the rain? I'll repeat that. The upset feeling is not caused by the rain, but by your reaction to the rain. Someone else would react differently, no upset. Of course, you can see that I'm building on this morning's statement. If you had not made your happiness depend on it's not raining, you wouldn't react this way, right? But you've been trained, you and I have been trained to make our happiness depend on certain things. And so when those things don't happen, thanks to our training, thanks to our programming, thanks to that false belief, if this doesn't happen, I'm not going to be happy, well, what do you know? We upset ourselves. Some very interesting examples of this. Let me give you examples from other cultures. Last summer, a friend of mine here in New York told me a very interesting, gave me a little anthropological detail of a tribe in Africa. He said, you know, their method of awarding the death penalty is the following. They don't have any electric chair. They don't have death by hanging. They have death by banishment. So you belong to the tribe, and you have committed a capital offense, and you're banished. And this friend of mine said, when the sentence of banishment is read, within a week or so, the person dies. Would you die if somebody read a sentence of banishment on you? I wouldn't. I don't think you would either. Would you? What do you think? I mean, we might feel it, right? I mean, we're banished to another place. We wouldn't die, for heaven's sake. They die. Literally. There's a Jesuit friend of mine in Mexico who told me about a belief among the natives in one part of Mexico that if they touch a certain type of stone, they would die. They're quite convinced of this. So there was a youngster who was running, it seems, and then his foot touched this kind of cursed stone. And the boy came to father and said he was going to die. And father said, oh, that's superstition. I don't believe this. Well, that night, the boy's mother came to the priest and said, Father, would you please come with the last sacraments? And father said, look, that's superstition. Don't you encourage that kid, or he's going to really, you know, it's going to be a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is rubbish, etc., etc. So he didn't go. Well, the next morning, the kid had died. He had literally died. He was convinced of it, so he died. One hears of students in certain cultures, in certain communities in certain countries who take their examinations so seriously. I hope you don't take those blessed examinations of yours as seriously. Take them so seriously that if they fail, they commit suicide. I know people who fail and say, great, doesn't matter at all. And somebody else, suicide. Why the difference in reaction? Now, let's draw the conclusions. Who killed him? Who killed her? The examination? The failure? What do you think? Let's get some response. What would you say? Herself, her reaction, right? Her reaction. You could say about the guy who was banished there from that African tribe. Suppose I said to the judge, the banishment killed him. The banishment did not kill him. It was his belief, his culture, his indoctrination, his programming that killed him. The kid whose foot touched the stone, did the stone kill him? Oh, no, no. It was his belief, his programming. You got that much? Now we apply it to our daily life. And the application is devastating, explosive. You could explode into happiness forever. You really could. I'm going to get you to try it. I'll give you a little bit of a break, and I'll give you an exercise on this. And some of you are going to experience it right here in this room. Watch. Something has upset you. Did you hear that expression? Something has upset you. That's the way the English language is. That's the way all languages are. Something upset me, nothing upsets you. The accurate way to speak would be, I upset myself on the occasion of something. But who speaks like that? So you upset me. No, no, no. Your behavior occasioned my upsetting myself. But we hate it, don't we? We love to make the world responsible, or people responsible, or life responsible, or God responsible. You did it. Not the upset. Not the upset. Are you getting some inkling of what it would mean if you really grasp this? You'd be above it all. That's one nice definition of spirituality. Spirituality means to no longer be at the mercy of any event or any person or anything. Hey, I didn't say not to love people. I said you're not at their mercy anymore. You're no longer at the mercy of any event or of any person or of anything. In other words, no matter what happens, you no longer upset yourself. I was spending years, studying spirituality, writing about it, reading books on it, taking courses on it. But, hey, I want to see, are you still upset? Do you still upset yourself on the occasion? You do. What's the use of all your studies? Life is passing you by while you're sitting in that concert hall, unable to enjoy the music, unable to lock the car, caught in between. All right, now let's see if we could work this out concretely. If you could give me 2 or 3 examples of upsetting, what we generally call upsetting situations or upsetting persons. If it were personal to you, that would be even better, but it doesn't have to be personal. It could be something that you've experienced, something that someone else has experienced. What's your name?
Kathleen.
Kathy? Kathleen? All right. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Died.
All right. If someone died, so here's an example. Okay? Someone dies and I'm upset. What upset me? The death of this person. No. If I'm upset by it, I've been programmed to be upset when someone dies. Now, take your time for that. That goes against everything your culture and mine has taught us. We've been taught to upset ourselves when we lose somebody. We've been trained to upset ourselves when someone rejects us, disapproves of us, leaves us, dies on us. We've been, here it goes, get ready for a scandalous sentence. We've been trained to depend emotionally on people. To not be able to live emotionally without people. I stress emotionally. So, well, naturally, I'm upset because someone I was attached to has died. The death upset me. On the occasion of this, I have been trained to upset myself. It sounds almost blasphemous, huh? It's awful. Think it over. Let's get a couple of examples more. Yes?
Seeing someone on the street who doesn't have enough to eat.
All right. Excellent. Okay, say it again.
Seeing someone on the street who doesn't have enough to eat.
Seeing someone on the street who doesn't have enough to eat. That's a great example. Because it seems like, look, we ought to be upset. Now let me take that slowly. All right? I see someone on the street who doesn't have enough to eat. Is that an evil? What do you think? Yes or no? Yes, obviously. Ought I to do something about it in as much as I can? Yes or no? Good, great. So far you're getting all the right answers. I'm going to catch you. Watch out. Third, do I need to upset myself in order to swing into action and do something about it? Great. You're getting A's everywhere. You know, there's an assumption that if you don't upset yourself, if you don't train people to upset themselves, they're not going to do anything. But look, here's someone who doesn't have enough to eat, and that's a calamity. Now you've gone and upset yourself. We got two calamities. Could we deal with this calamity without having another one added? But you know, lots of people cannot even conceive of their swinging into action without their first upsetting themselves. It's something like this. You're standing in a line. Somebody breaks the line. Now look, you want to take action? That's fine. You want to say it's wrong? You're right. You want to do something about it? Do. You want to push him away? That's fine. But you know what you're doing? You're saying, you've misbehaved, so I'm going to punish myself. Look how logical this is, okay? Because when Because I say to people, why do you have to get upset? They say, that isn't human. It isn't human. Look what you're doing. He misbehaved, right? So good. So what you're going to do is raise your blood pressure, lose your peace of mind, miss your sleep tonight. Say, look, since you misbehaved, I'm going to... Why would you punish yourself? You're innocent. But you think people would understand this? I mean, educated people, so-called reasonable people, their culture is built on this. How could you not upset yourself? You mean you're not upset? No. But you're planning to do something, evidently. Oh yeah, very much so. But you're not upset? No, why should I upset myself? Why should I punish myself? Because he misbehaved. Plunge into the din of battle and keep your heart at peace at the lotus feet of the Lord. Get into the din of battle. But there's a fear, see. The people who trained us, the people who programmed us, feared that if we didn't upset ourselves, we wouldn't do anything. It never occurred to them to realize that when you upset yourself, you have less energy to do something, and you have less perception. You're not seeing things right anymore. You're overreacting. I know nothing about boxing, but they tell me that the last thing a boxer in the ring ought to do is to get upset or lose his temper, because then he's lost the match. And they tell me too that the first thing his opponent is trying to do is to get him to lose his temper. So then he loses coordination and perception. And how often people who get into social projects, great projects for the welfare of others, they get so involved emotionally and so upset that they destroy the very work they set out to do. They lose perception. They overreact. One more example. Let's see. Any other example? Yes?
Like a crime done against you or something. I don't know.
Okay. Great. All right. Give me a name. Maureen. The question is, suppose there's a crime done against you. Shouldn't you be upset about that? I know, it's like people have stolen something from you.
You're not going to just say, well, I'm not going to get upset, so I'm not going to do anything about it. You know what I mean?
Hey. Did you say your name is Maureen?
Yeah.
Maureen, we didn't say don't do anything about it.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Now, how about that? There's a crime done against you. Does that justify your now upsetting yourself, right? Yes or no? Does it justify your upsetting yourself? No. But look, it seems almost unrealistic to even think in these terms. Now do you understand what I was saying this morning, that when you begin to talk to people, they don't want to hear. They say, oh, get away, you're crazy, you're mad, get away. All right, bye. Does this remind you of a gospel sentence? When they don't want to hear you, go away, go somewhere else. Don't waste your breath. They don't want to hear. They don't want to be happy. They don't want to change. All right, let them be. Why would you want to waste your breath? Do you have a need to give yourself the good feeling that you're converting everybody and the cause of their enlightenment? Maybe you ought to look into yourself now. You're not going to be happy unless you set yourself up as the great master, huh? See? They don't want to hear. Great, all right. That's their responsibility. So, every time, or let's word it this way. Nothing in all of this world has the power to upset you. Nothing. As a matter of fact, nothing has ever upset you. Nobody has ever hurt you. How about that one? My, you're not going to hear like this. Oh no, you mean nobody hurt me? No, no one ever hurt you. You stupidly hurt yourself. Now that brings me to part 2. Oh, they didn't hurt me, right? Reality didn't hurt me, right? So I cannot lash out against them. So who did the damage? Oh, me. Me hurt me? Yeah. And I'm going to lash out against me. I'm going to hate me for doing this. You getting what I'm saying? Why do I do this? I'm getting angry with me. I'm getting upset with me. What do you know now? Well, I got good news for you. They didn't do it to me. The world didn't do it to me. Life didn't do it to me. And best of all, I didn't do it to me. Isn't that wonderful? Then who done it? Look, honest to goodness, would any of you in your right mind sit down and knowingly and willingly and deliberately upset yourselves? Come on. Do you think any of you would do that? No, we wouldn't. We're not going to upset ourselves deliberately. It's as if this is something beyond our control, right? So stop blaming yourself. This has been stamped into you. You've been programmed into this. You've been conditioned this way. This is what you got to understand. You see, you don't have to do anything for enlightenment. You don't have to do anything for liberation and for spirituality. All you have to do is to see something, understand something. If you would understand it, you'd be freed. So, I'm upset. I've upset myself. They did it to me. Wrong. I did it to me. Wrong. It's my programming that's doing it to me. It's the culture that's doing it to me. This is the way I've been brought up. This is the way I've been trained. That native in that part of Africa is banished. The sentence killed him. Wrong. He killed himself. Wrong. It was his programming that did it. So, we've been programmed this way. You know, one of the signs of maturity, my dears, is the following. Very hard to define maturity. But I've come up with a fairly workable definition. Maturity is when you no longer blame anyone. You don't blame others, you don't blame yourself. You see what's wrong and you set about remedying it. That's one pretty good sign of maturity. You know, you'd be amazed how childish people are. They're so childish. I mean, if you've seen a little child, as a matter of fact, you can almost take for granted that in its present state of lunacy, 99.999% of humanity is childish. Just hang around. Hang around for half a day, you'll find our greatest men and women indulging in acts of childishness. Utterly childish. You know the way a child behaves? A little kid, I don't know about here in the States, but in India, I mean, they bump their knee into a table, and they're saying, "Whoa!" And everybody goes, "Who hit you? The table? Naughty table, naughty table." And so, "Oh, table, naughty table." And then the kid's feeling good. See how childish that is? Huh? So they're coming to you and say, "Now who hit you?" "My wife, my husband, my superior." Aren't they awful? They're terrible. And the little baby's feeling good. And he's the president of whatever big association or country or whatever. Oh my God, how childish can a person get? And they don't know their childishness. They gotta blame somebody. But no, maturity is to understand that no one is to blame. Or better still, more accurately put, not to give yourself the childish emotional outlet of blaming others or yourself, but rather seeing what went wrong and setting about remedying it. Do something about it. See? So, they're not to blame, you're not to blame. It's the programming that's doing this to you. Now, you're probably a bit too tired to do any exercise or anything, but I'm still going to offer you one. It'll only take a couple of minutes. See if it has any effect on you. Think of something that till now you would have said has upset you. I told you to think about it a little while ago. Go back to that. And understand that it wasn't that thing or that person that upset you. It was your programming. It was your programming. It wasn't their meanness. It wasn't their disapproval. It wasn't their rejection. It wasn't the failure. It was your programming that upset you. See what happens to you. If anyone would summon up the courage to tell us what happened to him or her, that would be splendid. Anyone wants to tell us if you had any success doing it and what happened to you? Okay, would you come up here, please, Chris? Great. Would you stand up, please?
Yes. And would it seem like your whole culture
is told you to feel upset in that situation. To
All
take
right.
that away leaves you feeling like you're lost.
All right, so you react with a feeling of, gee, I'm lost, something like that. Somebody else had a hand up here. Oh, okay, all right.
You've made me realize something really, really incredible.
Okay.
That until now, I have always identified with what I've felt.
Okay.
And now I know that I am not my feeling. I am not my unhappiness. I am not my displeasure.
Good.
It will go away.
Great, so you were able to distance yourself from the unhappiness, right? And say, well, it'll go away. All right. How about you?
My response is similar. You'd have to, it comes to a point where you have to let go of it
All right.
and realize that you're the one that has the power, not the thing over you.
Okay, a similar response. It's like, you're the one who have to let go of it, did you say? Okay. Look, when you're able to do this repeatedly, again and again, the general universal experience is the following. Gee, this thing upset me. First step. Second step, it wasn't this thing that upset me. It was my programming that upset me. Oh, so I don't have to deploy all of my energies fighting that outside thing, right? All right, right. I don't have to spend all my emotional energies blaming that outside thing. That's right. Funny, this thing gets depleted. It keeps going down. You know, because as long as I've got an enemy out there who's upsetting me, I'm demanding that change. I'm refusing to give up my upset unless that thing change. Am I clear enough? Like if I think, would you give me your name? PJ. Now if I think PJ is upsetting me, then as long as he's there and he's indulging in the behavior which I say is upsetting me, I'm refusing to give up my upset unless he reform, he change, he disappear, he get away or whatever. Right? But let's suppose PJ refuses to get away. Let's suppose it isn't PJ but it's life. And life persists in being that way. So I continue to be upset. Now the moment I say, hey, wait a minute, it isn't PJ, it isn't life, it's my programming. Oh, is that what it is? That's right. You know, he could be right there doing exactly what he's doing now, and I needn't be upset. Other people in my position wouldn't be upset. It's my programming. Oh, that's a revelation. And the upset is going down, 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 down. And after a while, you're getting less and less upset about fewer and fewer things. Am I clear enough? Am I? Okay. Now comes the big, pardon me, huh? I don't mean to be insulting or anything, but you're going to enjoy this. Now comes the big American question. How do we fix it? Like, okay, he's not upsetting me. I'm not upsetting me. The programming is upsetting me. How do I fix this? You know the big Oriental answer? You don't fix it. You let it be. It'll go away. The more you try to fix it, the stronger it gets. Gee, that's another mind-blowing thing. Don't fix it. Let it be. Let it be. It'll go away. It really will. If you've seen this, but don't I need to know where this programming comes from? It's a help, but not necessary. And if you're hell-bent on getting it, I've got to find it out where it comes from, and I got to change it, you're going to make it worse. You can be sure of that. Lots of people never change because they're so determined to change. They're so determined that they never change. They're so tense, they're so anxious that it gets worse. So here's another thing that particularly people in the West and in the East, we're all the same. You know, the kind of stuff I give you here, I give in Japan, and I give in India, and I give in Spain, and Latin America, and everywhere the people are the same. You've got a thin veneer of culture that's different, but deep down we're all the same. Same problems everywhere. The hatred is the same. The conflict is the same. The guilt is the same. The dependence on people's opinion and on the emotional dependence on approval is the same. It's exactly the same. Just scrape off the exterior culture, we're all the same. Now, everywhere people are trying to fix it too. How do I change it? You don't change it. You understand it. You look at it. You observe it. It'll take care of itself. Then what happens is you don't change it. Life changes it. Nature changes it. The way you don't heal yourself, nature heals itself. You just do something to aid nature. So let me wrap this up, and we'll take a kind of a 7-minute break to field questions, in case I've not been clear enough. And to aid the questions, I'll make it a little more outrageous, okay? I'll make it a bit more outrageous. When something happens that we commonly say upsets you, it isn't this thing that upsets you. Life is not rough on you. Life is easy. It's your programming that is rough on you. Life is easy. Life is delightful. Think of my friend Ramchandra, the rickshaw puller. All right. So it isn't this thing outside there that's causing the upset. It isn't you that are causing the upset. It's your programming. You got people you're living with. You're having difficulty in human relations. Human relations are never difficult. It's your programming that's difficult. There are never any difficulties in relating to people. There are only difficulties in your programming. How come you're getting upset? You mean it's possible to live with a guy who's losing his temper every day and not get upset? Yes, yes, very much so. Not be upset. You mean when somebody insults you, you're not getting upset? That's right. Why not? Why not be upset when someone insults you? I mean, when the letter isn't received, it's sent back to the man who wrote it or the woman who wrote it. You don't receive it, it goes back. How come you received it? Do you know why you got insulted or why you were upset by the insult? Because you took it, that's why. Silly. Why did you take it? You mean it's possible not to take it? You mean you call this being human, living like a little monkey? Anyone pulls a string and you jump? I'll tell you what it means to be human. You know what it means to be human is, it's something like this. A guy goes and buys a newspaper every day from a newspaper vendor. The newspaper vendor is always rude to him. So a friend of his says, why do you buy your paper from this guy? He's always rude to you. Why don't you buy it from someone else, just next door? Says this guy, why should the vendor decide where I buy my newspaper? Why should he have the power to decide that? Now you're talking about a human being. Otherwise you're talking about monkeys. You could control them, just twist their tail a little and they act in predictable ways. Programming. Programming. So it isn't the person who has upset you. It isn't you who have upset yourself. It's your programming. All you have to do is understand this and distance yourself from it. Understand it. You want to do something about that programming? If you can, fine. Is it necessary? No. If you're understanding it, you know it comes from your programming, not from you, not from them. It'll take care of itself. It really will. You'll be amazed that after a few months, things that before would have made you sick with anxiety or with suffering or with whatever, you can take in your stride with perfect peace. You're quite relaxed about it. That's the spiritual life. That's dying to yourself, dropping that programming. You drop it by understanding it for what it is. Call it by its name. So here we go. during the interval, I was thinking about those questions on religion, something very briefly on religion, and that story I promised you, remember? And then we were interrupted by the calls. There's this guy who invented fire, the art of making fire, see? And so then he takes the tools for making fire and goes up to the north where they have these tribes shivering in the cold, and he teaches them the art of making fire and the advantages, and people become interested, they learn, and what you know, pretty soon they're cooking, they're using it for building, and before they had time to say thanks to the inventor, he had disappeared. He didn't want any thanks, he just wanted people to benefit from his invention. He goes to another tribe, and he attempts to interest them too in his new invention. But he ran into a snag there, see. The priests began to realize how popular the guy was becoming and how their own influence on the people was diminishing. So they decided to make away with him. They poisoned him. A suspicion arose among the people that it was the priests who had done it. So you know what the priests did? They had a huge portrait made of the man. They put it on the main altar in the temple. They devised a liturgy by which the man would be honored, a ritual. And year after year, people came to pay homage to the great inventor and to the instruments for making fire. And the ritual was faithfully observed. But there was no fire. No fire. Ritual, remembrance, gratitude, veneration, no fire. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and fail to do what I tell you? What's he telling us? Love. Love. That's what he's saying. What's the major obstacle to love? What I've been talking about today. Our programming, our obsessive attachments. That's what's blocking it, as I hope to show you during this session. The best religion in the world is the religion called love, not the religion called Lord, Lord. Who says that? Jesus Christ himself. And we may never lose sight of that, we Christians. Talking about this matter of grace and our effort, etc. There's the lovely one of the pious old Jew who said one day to God, he said, God, look how faithfully I've served you all my life. Right? Of course, he heard no answer. Right, says he himself to himself. Now, I've never asked you for anything. Right? Right, says he, talking on behalf of God, of course. And he says, now I'm going to ask you for just one favor, and you can't say no to me. All my life I've served you, I've observed the law, I've kept the rights, I've done good to people, I've observed your commandments. Just do me this one favor. Let me win the lottery, and then I can retire in peace and security. So he was convinced that God would grant him his desire, and he waited and waited and waited, and he kept on praying every night, and after 6 months nothing had happened. And one night, in sheer frustration, he yelled, he said, God, give me a break, let me win the lottery. And imagine the fright he got when he heard a voice reply, give me a break yourself, buy a ticket. I haven't bought a ticket. Much for effort and grace, buy your ticket, okay? Make sure you got your ticket. Make sure you're using your understanding. Don't expect miracles to happen. Like, see, understand, change as a result of that. So the first thing has to do with religion. The second point I want to make before we end this afternoon has to do with happiness. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories. Sometimes a story says more than a whole day's lecture, because it sort of speaks to the depths within us. And this one certainly speaks to mine. This is a story of a guy who is moving out of the village in India, out of his village, and he sees what we in India call a sannyasi. The sannyasi is the wandering mendicant. The sannyasi is the person who, having attained enlightenment, understands that the whole world is his home and the sky is his roof and God is his father and will look after him. So he moves from place to place the way you and I would move from one room of our home to another. Well, here was this wandering sannyasi, and the villager, when he meets him, he said, "I cannot believe this." And the sannyasi says, "What is it you cannot believe?" And the villager says, "I had a dream about you last night. I dreamt that the Lord Vishnu said to me, tomorrow morning you'll leave the village around 11 o'clock and you'll run into this wandering sannyasi. And here I've met you. What else did the Lord Vishnu say to you?" said the sannyasi. And the man said, "He said to me, if the man gives you a precious stone he has, you will be the richest man in the whole world. Would you give me the stone?" So the sannyasi said, "Wait a minute." He rummages in his little sack, knapsack that he had. He said, "Would this be the stone you're talking about?" And the man couldn't believe his eyes, because it was a diamond, the largest diamond in the world. He held it in his hands. He said, "Could I have this?" And the sannyasi said, "Of course, you could take it. I found it in a forest. You're welcome to it." And he went on and sat under a tree in the outskirts of the village. The man grasped this diamond, and how great was his joy. The way ours is, isn't it? The day we really get something we really want. Do you ever stop to ask how long it lasts? You got the girl you wanted, right? You got the boy you wanted, right? You got that car, huh? You got the degree. You were first in the university. How long did the joy last? Let's measure it. I mean that. How many seconds? How many minutes? You get tired of it, don't you? Then you're looking for something else, aren't you? Why don't we study this? As valuable, more valuable than studying the scriptures, because of what good is it to you to study the scriptures and crucify the Messiah on the basis of them, as Jesus was, if you've not understood this, if you've not understood what it means to live and to be free and to be spiritual. Well, so the guy has the diamond, and then instead of going home, he sits under a tree himself. And all day he sits, immersed in thought. And towards evening, he goes to the tree where the sannyasi is sitting, gives him back the diamond, and he says, "Could you do me a favor?" "What?" says the sannyasi. He said, "Could you give me the riches that makes it possible for you to give this thing away so easily?" Boy, I love that story. I love that story. Could you give me the riches that makes it possible for you to give this away so easily? That is what I've been talking about today. The world is full of sorrow. The root of sorrow is attachment. The uprooting of sorrow is the dropping of attachment. The understanding that attachment is a false belief. The false belief that anything or person can make you happy. True happiness is caused by nothing. True happiness is uncaused. If you ask the mystic why he or she is happy, the answer will be, why not? No block, no obstruction. Why not? Have you ever thought that if something causes your happiness, when you lose that something, your happiness will be destroyed? Has it ever occurred to you that if something causes your happiness, you will become possessive of that thing? You will become anxious lest you lose it? Whatever that thing be, learning, reputation, good health, life itself. How interesting. The rediscovery of life. You will never live till you stop clinging to life. Let go. When you cling, happiness dies. If your happiness depends on anyone or anything, that's not happiness, my dears. That's anxiety. That's tension. That's pressure. That's fear. The Japanese have a powerful tale for this. Oh, it's so powerful. There's this guy who's running away from a tiger, comes to a precipice, and quite unwittingly, he begins to slide down that precipice. And as he's sliding, he grabs hold onto a branch of a tree that's growing there, kind of a bush. And then he looks down. There's no way of climbing up, and anyway, there's